Here's what we're going to do is we're getting sound on our Facebook page. So let's do this here. Keenan, I want you to restart our YouTube stream, and then we will start the show over. We'll do that. Let's go ahead and do this here. Let's go ahead. In the meantime, we're going to play some of our videos. Okay, are we now? We still have no sound on YouTube. YouTube folks, can you hear me? I think people are saying now they have sound, so give me 1 second before we start to hear. So give me 1 second. Sorry, everybody here. We're now somebody is saying sound is back on YouTube. So no. We're all good. So YouTube folks, can you hear? Okay, all right. Now the YouTube people say they now have sound. I have no idea what the hell happened. But we're trying to figure out what's going on, why we're not getting. We were getting sound on Facebook. Facebook was fine, but YouTube was the problem, and so we're gonna start this thing over. This was Joe Biden now addressing the nation. Here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kamala and I are here to make a brief statement, and I'm sure we'll have more to say later, and either tonight or tomorrow. But let me begin by thanking the press for being here and thanking everyone else. My fellow Americans, yesterday once again proved that democracy is the heartbeat of this nation, just as it has been the heartbeat of this nation for 2 centuries. And even in the face of a pandemic, more Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary. And if we had any doubts, we shouldn't have any longer about a government of, by, and for the people. It's very much alive in America. Here, the people rule. Power can't be taken or asserted. It flows from the people, and it's their will that determines who will be the President of the United States, and their will alone. And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report that when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners. With all the votes counted, we have won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, virtually the same margin that President Trump won that state 4 years ago. In Michigan, we lead by over 35,000 votes, and it's growing. A substantially bigger margin than President Trump won Michigan in 2016. Michigan will complete its vote soon, maybe as early as today. And I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted were cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania. We've flipped Arizona and the 2nd District of Nebraska. Of special significance to me is that we've won with the majority of the American people. And every indication is that that majority will grow. We have a popular vote lead of nearly 3 million votes, and every indication is that will grow as well. Indeed, Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country that ever won the presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. I'm very proud of our campaign. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated an incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement. And it's been a long and difficult campaign. But it's been a more difficult time for our country, a hard time. We've had hard campaigns before. We've faced hard times before. So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, and respect and care for one another, to unite, to heal, to come together as a nation. I know this won't be easy. I'm not naive. Neither of us are. I know how deep and hard the opposing views are in our country on so many things. But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as Democrats, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone. And it demands a duty of care for all Americans. That is precisely what I will do. I will work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did vote for me. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much to ever let that happen. We, the people, will not be silenced. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender. My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge victorious. But this will not be my victory alone or our victory alone. It'll be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. And there will be no blue states and red states when we win, just the United States of America. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
And that was, of course, Joe Biden earlier, folks. But what is happening is what we're seeing take place, that the Trump people are obviously, he made it clear he was not going to do, they're not going away at all. They are challenging in Michigan, trying to get them to stop the count there so they can say they're not properly observing the count. That's one thing that's happening there. Also, what we're seeing is that they're trying to also impact what's happening there in Pennsylvania. Remember, Donald Trump was complaining vigorously about Pennsylvania. He was complaining that the Supreme Court erred in their decision. But remember, the Supreme Court did not completely rule, said that they could potentially come back to the court And so again, looking at that as well. So this, of course, was a scene right here. Go to my iPad, please. Out at Detroit, where you hear mostly black Detroit, but look at all the white folks there. And so turn it up. They were chanting for them to stop the count, but Michigan folks were continuing. Donald Trump wants them to stop the count of people who have cast legal ballots. Why is that? Because he's behind. And so the exact same thing, of course, is happening there in Pennsylvania as well. And so joining us right now is State Senator Sharif Streeter from Pennsylvania. Senator Streeter, Donald Trump complained before the election when the Supreme Court would not intervene in terms of stopping those ballots. There are some 1.9 million ballots, some 1.9 million ballots that were cast in mail. Joe Biden, as you heard him say, they're doing extremely well, getting about 78% of all mail ballots. Donald Trump has something like a 540,000 vote lead. But if you start counting those mail ballots, they believe that that lead is going to evaporate and it is going to go to Donald Trump. And just to give us a sense of what is happening in your state of Pennsylvania.
Well, Roland, listen, one, that Donald Trump's lead that you're talking about of 500,000 is already evaporated down to about 300,000 just in the last few hours. It's not that your information is very old. It's just that Donald Trump's lead is evaporating very quickly. With our estimates around mail-in ballots, we believe strongly that Donald Trump is going to lose Pennsylvania. We also believe that when it's all said and done, it is quite possible that Joe Biden will break Barack Obama's record in terms of largest margin of victory in the history of Philadelphia for a presidential campaign. That is and so when you look at that, it is very, very likely, and I'm fairly confident that Joe Biden will win Pennsylvania, and when he wins Pennsylvania, he will be the president of the United States of America.
Obviously, but you look at what's happening right now, he actually may not even need Pennsylvania. Winning Wisconsin, winning Michigan. Then, of course, folks have called Arizona and Nevada for Joe Biden. If you, Henry, go to my iPad, please. If you look at 270towin.com, you see that right there. We'll go ahead and give Ohio to Donald Trump, Iowa to Donald Trump. Georgia has not been called. North Carolina has not been called. But right now, because Joe Biden won the one electoral college vote in Nebraska, the Nebraska second, if he maintains his lead, and again, there are ballots that have to be counted in Arizona and Nevada. Again, same as in Pennsylvania, they believe that those will go his way. If he wins Arizona and Nevada, by him winning Wisconsin and Michigan, he hits 270. Go back to the iPad. Let's just assume something happens and then Nevada flips, Arizona flips. To your point, that brings Joe Biden down to 253 electoral college votes, Donald Trump at 233. If Joe Biden secures Pennsylvania, so Pennsylvania goes blue, he goes 273. And again, so that shows you exactly. Let's just assume, let's go take Pennsylvania back off the map. Let's go Georgia. Let's turn Georgia blue. He's at 269. So the reality is that's what he needs. So Senator Streeter, what we're talking about here is Joe Biden has multiple pathways to 270. Donald Trump has very few.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I want to say I'm very proud of what's happened in my hometown of Philadelphia and in my home city of my home state of Pennsylvania. We've done a great job, and also want to give a shout out because I'm a Morehouse man to all the folks in the city of Atlanta and the work that they've done in Georgia. There are multiple paths for Joe Biden, and in part is because Americans care about health care, care about their health, want a good response to COVID, want a strong response to the economy, and also because Black and brown folks and our allies and so many other folks just really wanted to send a strong message that the blatant and utter disrespect that Donald Trump has shown to our communities for the past 4 years, both in terms of his rhetoric and his substance, by doing things like pushing out the PPP in a way that 95% of Black businesses didn't receive any, is something that's unacceptable to us. And so I'm excited that there are so many pathways. And for a guy who spent time at Morehouse College and lives in Pennsylvania, nothing can make me feel more proud than the fact that both Pennsylvania and Georgia have a chance to become Democratic. We'll go for the Democrats and help Joe Biden in the reign of terror of Donald Trump.
For all of the talk about white women and suburban women, how they were so important, Donald Trump, according to exit polls, took 55% of white women. The reality is this here. If you're a Democrat, if you're Joe Biden, if you're Senator Kamala Harris, you better be thinking black people, because it's black folks there in Philadelphia, black folks there in Detroit. And then, of course, we talk about Atlanta. The black people will put him over the hump to become president.
Yes, absolutely. And Roland, I'm glad that you pointed that out. I mean, look, and I want to point out something. Look, black women are the backbone of our community and the backbone of the Democratic Party. But let's give a shout out to black men whose numbers, in terms of not just the percentage, but the fact that you had a significant increase in both black male and female turnout in many cities across America, and that helped buoy Joe Biden's victory. So we often focus on just when the things that don't go well in our community, but very rarely do we celebrate the victories. And black people, male and female, showed up in significant numbers for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and showed up for significant numbers to repudiate the presidency and end the presidency of Donald Trump.
All right, State Senator Streeter, we certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much. And we'll be watching to see, again, how that count goes. Last question, any idea, will it be tomorrow, will it be Friday, when Pennsylvania believes that they will be done with their count?
Look, I think that the total count probably still not done till Friday, but I think that there will be, I'm optimistic that there's a possibility tomorrow at some point Joe Biden could move ahead of Donald Trump in terms of total votes received. So probably Friday till we get a complete count. And we want a complete count, and I certainly want a good count, a accurate count. It's more important to us than a quick count. But I believe that just in the way numbers are moving, there's a very good chance that that tomorrow Joe Biden will have exceeded. His vote count will exceed Donald Trump's in Pennsylvania, and once it does, then the margin of victory will just grow from there. And so we're very encouraged. And by Friday night, going into the weekend, America will have something to celebrate.
All right, then, Senator Streeter, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Roland. Appreciate everything you do, and for continuing to provide a voice for our community throughout this country.
Yes, sir. I certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, let's go to our panel. A. Scott Bolden, former chair, National Bar Association Political Action Committee. We have Teresa Lundy, principal founder, TML Communications, Monique Presley, legal analyst and crisis manager, and also Robert Patillo. Robert, of course, is the executive director of the Rainbow Push Peachtree Street Project. All right, folks, let's get into this thing. So I will start with Teresa first. Teresa, you there in Philadelphia. Again, Trump does not want to see those ballots counted. The Trump team, they see what's coming for all of their talk. He won Pennsylvania in 2016. The mail-in balloting, huge advantage there for the Democrats. And that's where a lot of black votes are. From your perspective, did Philadelphia, did black folks in that state show up and show out for Joe Biden? And could that very well be the icing on the cake for him becoming the 46th president of the United States?
Absolutely. So, good things happen in Philadelphia every day, but they also happened during 2020. And so what we've seen throughout this entire process is that Black and brown communities not only unified, but they came together with a collective voice and a broadened vision about what they want their country to look like for the next 4 years. So they've kept coming out in drones. I've seen unions step up like never before. I've seen grassroots organization, churches, holding roundtable discussions and, making sure their congregation was prepared by having vans and also making sure they had vehicles on the day of without additional resources given from the city in order to do some of these activities. So it's just been phenomenal. I'm so excited to look at the numbers because it absolutely would change the landscape of what's going to happen here in this county, specifically in Philadelphia County and the city, because there's just so many great things that are going to happen locally that I think people, kind of during a pandemic, the numbers tripled. Right. So, people are supposed to be in the house, we're masked up, but the work is still continuing. And I think a lot of that energy really came from the organizations, Black Voters Matter, the Lincoln Project and other phenomenal national organizations that said, listen, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania specifically is a touch point for us to work with. And I think once we have seen that, across the spectrum, across every single county. I mean, listen, when was the last time we've had a vice president candidate, here on election day in the northwest section of Philadelphia? We probably haven't had that since 2008 when Barack Obama was here. But they know that Philadelphia gets it done, and I believe Black and brown communities have absolutely stood up, and so did our elected officials, and I think they all came together, and we will see the massive turnout of the win that will, give Joe Biden his win.
Robert, we go to you next. You there in Georgia. We're waiting to see what happens there. Donald Trump has a slight lead, but when you look at those outstanding ballots, especially in Fulton County, that is going to be strong for Joe Biden. And based upon looking at Joe Biden could very well overtake Donald Trump and win Georgia by around 15, 20,000 votes.
Absolutely, and the numbers still have not come in. This is still a toss-up, quite frankly, right now with those absentee ballots, and particularly where they are located at, being centralized in Fulton County and in DeKalb County. We also, after this race, are going to have to look at the effect that voter suppression has had in making this even a toss-up state or even a close state, because we saw on Election Day, first thing in the morning, Spalding County, Georgia, Griffin, Georgia, where the entire voting system was down for 3 hours, and we had to go into court to make sure that we had voting hours extended until 9 o'clock there. We saw in DeKalb County, voting precincts between 30 and 40 were changed in the last 3 days before the election, causing people to have to find their voting location on the morning of. We saw in Fulton County, where the large voting center, the State Farm Arena, had a power outage, which may have affected the counting. So if it wasn't for this many electoral issues, which does not happen in any other first world major democracy, where we're fighting for the ability to vote, we could see a complete demographic shift. What we're in the middle of is a reverse of the Great Migration right now. As many people who have left those industrial jobs in the Midwest, auto jobs in Michigan, coal and steel jobs in Pennsylvania and Ohio, they've moved down south. And because of that, places like North Carolina are now in play. Georgia is now in play. Florida will, depending on how the Cuban vote sways, is in play. And so we're going to have to refocus on our efforts on ensuring that going forward, the party and Democrats in particular are focusing in on those southern states, which now have the populations to be blue states, whereas the upper Midwest in large ways is becoming more and more Republican. You see more MAGA flags in Michigan than you do in parts of Georgia at this point in time. So we have to make sure we're allocating our resources properly to ensure that African Americans in particular, who are the ones who carried this ball across the finish line, are properly represented in spending and dollars and in campaigns and supporting candidates going forward.
It is, of course, as we watch this just unfold, looking at the numbers, and again, the numbers are against Donald Trump. Monique, they are trying every legal attempt, but here's one of their problems. It's a little hard, Monique, to say, stop counting here, keep counting over there. No, we want judge. I mean, I can imagine one of the attorneys saying, Judge, we really believe that it's important that you rule that it's unfair to continue to count the votes there in Michigan and Pennsylvania, counting those votes that came in after the deadline. The judge says to the plaintiff's attorney, so let me ask you. Right now, they're also counting some 200,000 votes there in Arizona, some 400,000 votes in Nevada. Do you believe that this ruling should apply to those states? Well, no, Judge, you are a judge, a federal judge on the East Coast. And then we're talking to a federal judge who's in the Midwest. And we believe that the federal judges in the West really got their own opinions on these issues. So we don't really want you to focus on, Judge, what's happening in Arizona and Nevada. Our lawsuit right now is only specific to Pennsylvania and Michigan. How would that legal argument go in court, Monique?
Well, actually, that's sound where legal argument is concerned, because they're not appealing to federal courts, they're appealing to state courts. And one of the things that is still kind of a beauty about this country is that though we're called a democracy, we're a republic, and states have rights. And sometimes those rights are very significant. And where voting is concerned, that's one of those times. And that's why when we're going out and saying your vote matters up and down the ballot, vote for your Secretary of State, vote for your Board of Elections, vote for your council. This is why that matters, because they have a level of autonomy that enables them to make certain decisions, including when you start voting, how many ballot boxes are going to be available, whether you can have drive-through voting or not. But all that being said, look, we have an outgoing president and we have an incoming president. And these lawyers right now are doing what lawyers do. And all it is now is shenanigans. I mean, they are walking through the paces and billing their hours in order to assure the campaign, the president, whomever, that they did everything they possibly could to try to stop what is inevitable. If we had stopped counting last night, Donald Trump would have lost. If we had stopped counting this morning, he would have lost. If we had stopped at 2 p.m., he would have lost. If we stop right now, he's losing. So this is where we are. And whether he accepts it or not, whether he has to leave on his own or be escorted politely by Secret Service, dude gotta go.
Scott Bolden, when we start again breaking down what is going on here, the path that Team Trump has is a very limited path. If this was poker, you want to have the hand of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris all day, all night.
Yeah, Biden doesn't need Pennsylvania to win. That's one of the most powerful pieces now that he got Wisconsin and Michigan in the bag. And so he can win Nevada and Arizona, where I think he's leading, and that's a wrap, if you will. But here's the thing, that's the sunny side, as Reverend Jackson used to say. But there's a darker side. There's a storm for the Democratic Party, right? Donald Trump, with all of his obnoxiousness.
No. I don't want to go there yet. I only want you.
But I want to go there.
No, well, first of all, you're gonna have to wait. You're gonna have to wait. First of all,
it's your show.
Precisely. There's a flow to this show, and we're gonna go according to my flow. So you're gonna answer the question I just gave, and then we're gonna go to a break, and then I'm gonna go to the next phase of this conversation. So please stay on topic.
It sounds like you're dictating to me, and I hate that.
You'll get over it. You're used to it from Erica.
In any event, keep my wife out of this. Okay.
Because you know I ain't lying.
Pennsylvania, that's you. Okay. So if he's got 3 or 4 or 5 ways to get to 270 or over 270, and that's why you want Joe Biden's hand. The reality is, though, the fight will continue once he gets to 270. We've got lots of lawyers on the Democratic and Republican side. But when you get to court, you need empirical data or facts to support either fraud or that these mail-in ballots should not be counted. And the facts and empirical data simply aren't there to do that, whether you're in state court or even you get to Supreme Court, because it's just not there. These ballots legally under these state laws are enforceable, are acceptable, and consistent with the law. And I can't figure out an argument, Monique, to get around those laws, those enforcement requirements, unless there's data and facts. And the Supreme Court has rejected those arguments in Pennsylvania and out of Michigan already.
Monique, you got a response?
There is no such argument. I agree with my brother. The only way they win in the Supreme Court is because they stacked it right with justices that don't care anything about facts or law. But I agree with Joe Biden's lead counsel, who today in the briefing said if they try to take this to the Supreme Court, they will get the type of shellacking that we haven't seen for 100 years, because there's no judge, no justice, no lawyer who's going to say, you're not going to count legal vote that were turned in, that the Secretary of State said were okay, the governor said were okay, the feds aren't supposed to intervene. This is the GOP that's supposed to care about state rights, except for when they go against them. It's nonsense. So, no.
And remember, these are state
unavailable.
Issues. The states
Please
run
leave a message.
these elections. It's not a federal issue.
Nope.
And also,
Robert, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I'll say, and also just to contrast this with Bush v. Gore in 2000, let's understand that the Trump team is not simply filing a lawsuit in Florida, as George Bush had to do, and take it to the Supreme Court. This is multiple states across the country. They've already filed suit in Michigan. They're talking about challenging the election in Wisconsin and Arizona and Nevada and Pennsylvania potentially if they lose, in Georgia if they lose there. So they're talking about doing a nationwide nearly lawsuit against various aspects of this. And if this was allowed to go forward, this litigation would drag on probably until the next election. So I don't think there's any legal foot to stand on or any court that will be able to overturn what we're seeing. And particularly if Joe Biden picks up a state like Georgia or Pennsylvania, where the margin is so large it's outside of the realm of 1 or 2 points, as it's looking like right now, then I don't see any of these legal challenges going anywhere.
Going to break. We come back. We will talk about the United States Senate races and whether or not Dems, what the hell happened with that. Can they get to 50? We'll break that down next. Also, later in the show, oh yes, we will talk about the very issue, whiteness in America. We know, we understood the nation that America is. So all these people who keep saying, this is not the America we thought it was. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we'll explain. That's next on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now. Eee.
So a lot of y'all always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they basically about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website, and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, it goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club.
Folks, this right here is the front page of today's Miami Herald. It says it was a bloodbath, how Miami's rightward shift changed the face of Florida politics. Democrats lost 2 House congressional seats there, led by Cuban Americans and Venezuelans. A lot of people are asking the question today, what in the world happened with Latino voters? One exit poll said that Latino men went 60% for Donald Trump. Well, it's real easy to have all this sort of stuff back and forth. People talking about Latino voters. Matt Barreto is one of the best pollsters out there with regards to Latino voters. He joins us right now. So Matt, there's a lot of people who talk all kind of different stuff about Latino voters. All kinds of. I said, no. Get Matt. I want to understand before we make any assumptions what actually what has happened in this election with Latino voters.
Well, good to see you, Roland. And I got to get one of those pocket squares, so I'm going to have to follow you up on that. First of all, let's talk about Miami. Miami is only 3% of the entire national Latino electorate, 3%. And last night, you would have thought that was all, that we were all Cuban and Venezuelan, because people were obsessed with what was happening. I understand that Florida is important, but even in Florida, only about 1/3 of Latinos are Cuban, and about 1/3 are Puerto Rican. And so we need to take the Latino electorate state by state, but also within a state as complex as Florida, and break it out by different geographies, by different ethnicities. And one of the things that we found last night looking at the data is that in the Puerto Rican community in Orlando, in Tampa, in Osceola County, we did really well. We were up with 72% according to the exit poll with Puerto Ricans. And that was a community we really targeted, worked really hard at. It is the case that in Miami, that it was a tougher battle there. And Republicans had made some inroads with Cubans. I'm going to give you one theory as to why they did better this year. Back in 2016, Trump spent a big part of his primary bashing Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Now, Ted Cruz is not necessarily loved by anyone, but Rubio is. Rubio is a household name in the Cuban-American community, and Trump spent the better part of that campaign bashing him. It was hard at the end of that primary to rebuild that image. Over the last 4 years, what has Rubio done? He has run to Trump's aid, and he has helped him restore some of those votes in the Cuban-American community. But again, just put that in perspective. That's only 3% of the national Latino vote. And when we talk about how in Arizona, it was a great night for Latino voters in Arizona.
Glad you mentioned that particular point about when you mentioned Puerto Rico voters. Last night, I had Rosa Clemente on our coverage of the election. This is what she had to say. Venezuelans, you argue Democrats did not do enough to go after the 500,000 Puerto Ricans there in Florida.
Yes, Roland, first of all, can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, perfect. No, 1.5 million Puerto Ricans in Florida.
Wow, 1.5. Okay.
Yes, there are 5.6 million Puerto Ricans in the United States, the 3 biggest states being Florida, New York, and Pennsylvania. And my argument was, and everybody who knows me, Roland, you know me, I'm a Green Party, third-party candidate, but I did keep stressing to the Democratic Party leadership, like, you have to go to Florida and talk to Puerto Ricans. You have to go to Pennsylvania. Throughout a lot of my travels as a speaker, I've been to probably every county and city in Pennsylvania. And the Puerto Rican population is large there. So you're also talking about post-Hurricane Maria. And what Trump did was he went down there and he promised Puerto Ricans $13 billion, which we know it's a lie. But every Puerto Rican that I spoke to throughout the state of Florida told me no Democratic leadership has asked to visit us. So my argument is you're talking about 1.5 million Puerto Ricans, also who, as American citizens, when we hit the United States, we can vote. And, I just don't think the outreach was there. And I think the outreach should also happen in Pennsylvania. I live in upstate New York, so I'm close to this part of Pennsylvania.
All right, Matt. So I would think that if you're Democrats and you realize how strong Cuban Americans vote Republican, when you look at how Venezuelans are following in the footsteps of Cuban voters, to your point, and I was on the phone today with a couple of Democratic strategists, and they asked me, okay, Roland, how then do we need to compete? I said, you've got to stop saying Latino. You got to get rid of Latinx. And what you have to say is, we're going to have a targeted effort to Puerto Ricans in Florida, to Cubans in Florida, to Venezuelans in Florida. We're going to have a separate strategy for Mexican Americans in Texas and for Mexican Americans who are in Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. We're going to have a completely different strategy for Chicanos in Chicago, for Dominicans in New York. I think part of the problem here, Matt, is that they've been treating groups as, I'm going to create a single message or two for this entire group, just like, and I'm going to discuss it with my panel in a little bit, same thing. I'm going to reach African Americans, but within that, I must have a targeted focus for black women, educated in terms of college degree, non-college degree. A targeted effort for black men, college degree, non-college degree. You can't just sort of do this one shot across and I'm going to catch everybody with the same messaging.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about that. But, a little bit of what Rosa was saying was coming out of that just early knee-jerk reaction when it looked like the, quote, Latino vote, which was being lumped together early on, wasn't performing well. We knew by the end of the night that it turned out a lot better. Really, the only real trouble spot was in Miami-Dade County. As I said, if you look at the rest of Florida, Puerto Rican vote was really good in the rest of Florida. We had really good numbers in Orange County and Osceola County. And Pennsylvania, which is going to come through today, it does have a huge, huge Puerto Rican vote. About 65% of Latinos in Pennsylvania are Puerto Rican voters. Nydia Velázquez was there 3 or 4 times for the Biden campaign, coming over from New York to talk to those Latinos. And you're absolutely right. It does need to come from the community. It needs to be culturally relevant. And you saw the same thing. Darren Soto, Puerto Rican congressman, was really active in Central Florida. But if you go to Phoenix, who did the campaign have? Ruben Gallego, Congressman Raul Grijalva, these Congress people from the community who are Mexican American doing that outreach. We had George Lopez going into Arizona and doing events for Latino men. That needs to become the norm. There needs to be more of that. There needs to be more micro-targeting Black and brown communities in the same way that the white vote is pulled apart and seen these different sort of subgroups. I think you're starting to see that. If you peel back now and look at where were their success stories in 2020, you're going to see that it was more of that. Arizona needs to be at the top of the list. People need to unpack that more. The state director for Biden was a Latina for the whole state of Arizona. Then under her was a Latino state director just focusing on the Mexican-American community. That's a good blueprint to use to expand, to really take the vote seriously.
There's an issue that we have to talk about. And I saw this happen in, was it 2012? It was 2012. It was very interesting. I remember was at CNN, and there was all this talk about white Hispanics. And I remember being in a conference room, and you had Mark Whitaker, who was the number 2 at CNN, the managing editor, was sitting in the room, and we're on the conference call, and they're on the call, and these folks are on the call, and they're talking about, and so one of the white executives at CNN says, look, folks, we got to be careful with this language. They're not white Hispanics. I started laughing. And there was somebody in the call who goes, I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm a white Hispanic. And I said, guys, I'm from Texas. I've been knowing white Hispanics my whole life. Let's talk about that, Matt, because when we talk about white Hispanics, the reality is we have to confront the fact that there are white Hispanics who are more white, identify with more with white voters than they do with black and brown voters. Talk about what your polling says when it comes to that, and how that goes when it comes to Democrats, Joe Biden, and Republicans, Donald Trump. What are you saying?
Well, there's a huge diversity, and we need to continue talking about that diversity in the Latino community. Where you generally see it is large numbers in places like Florida, people who were fleeing South America, Cuba, and other places who identify as white racially. And yes, they are a Hispanic Latino. They might be immigrants. They might have an accent, et cetera, but they may identify racially as closer to white. And then you have others also from the Caribbean, Puerto Rican, Dominican, and other communities, Brazilian maybe, who identify as black. You go up to the Dominican population in New York City. And so that is a big issue. The diversity within our community is there. And then you have predominantly Mexican-American immigrant populations in the Southwest, which differ, right, from those populations that say, hey, my family's been here 200 years. Think about some of those communities in New Mexico where Spanish is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But people maybe trace their ancestry to Spain, to the conquistadors who came 500 years ago. So that diversity is important. The one thing we find is people still identify as Hispanic. They identify as Latino. They recognize that. But they do want to recognize their own, cultural differences, and that's important.
Which is why I keep trying to explain to people that when you talk about African Americans in this country, you're talking about people who are from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Arkansas, Texas, things along those lines. When you talk about Latinos in America, you have to think nationalities. Venezuelan, Cuban, Peru, folks who are Brazil. I mean, you have to think that way. And so they have a national identity that also goes along with it, because they say, I'm Venezuelan.
Right.
Whereas African Americans, they say, I'm black. I might be black from Texas, but I'm black from Louisiana, I'm black. So you can't ignore the nationalistic aspect of these voters.
Well, it's also interesting, and I'd be curious to get your perspective on this as we start to think about the way that the black population in America is changing too, with Haitian, Jamaican, and other black, Caribbean, or even African. I mean, that immigrant population is now starting to be noticeable. Ethiopian, Eritrean in the black community too, and that's quite interesting to see those distinctions. And kids often identify as black, but sometimes there's those immigrant populations as well.
And I'll tell you, many of the people who would support Donald Trump who were black were those very immigrants, because their view of America is different. One of the things I want to talk to you last before I let you go, is we still talk about. First of all, before I do it, do you use the term Latinx? I don't get it. So I mean, seriously, for me, I say Hispanic/Latino because growing up in Texas, they're the different groups. I know folks in Latino who can't stand Latinx. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Well, I always say, as a pollster, when I'm talking to people, I'll let them identify however they want, whatever their preferred term is. And there are folks, including younger folks, who do like the term Latinx. They think it is more inclusive. When we ask people in polls and we say, what term do you prefer? What do you identify with? Hispanic is still the overwhelming term by about 60%. And then Latino or Latina, some people like that because they can, pull their gender in through that. We only find usually about 2% nationally who are using regularly the term Latinx. So it's more of a, I think, insider academic DC sort of term. But I say
or young people thing.
Young people, but even among young people, it usually doesn't get higher than 10% of young people.
So all right. So one of the areas that when we talk about Latino voters, you cannot divorce the issue of the Catholic Church and pro-life. And that, again, when I hear people say, like, for instance, people have said that one of the exit polling showed that 66% of Latino men voted for Donald Trump. Not sure if that's correct. Just would love to get your perspective if that's real or not. But we cannot underestimate the role of the Catholic Church and folks who are Latino, who say, I'm Catholic, I am pro-life, who identify with Republicans on that issue as well.
I think we have an opportunity with Biden coming in as president, as a practicing real-life Catholic, someone who, for them, faith and religion is important to them, to make that connection to that community and to say we might have some differences, but we have so much in common and so many similarities. So there's a big opportunity right there to think about what that vote's going to look like if Biden is able to lean in and express his Catholic values. And maybe mostly immigrants are a little bit more conservative on some issues, they often see that as a private issue, not necessarily for role of government. There's not a good tradition of the Catholic Church being involved in government in Latin America. And so it's their private values, it's their own family values, but they're increasingly okay with government maybe taking a role on issues like same-sex marriage, like abortion, even as they might personally not be in favor of it. And I do think there's an opportunity with Biden coming in as president to lean into his Catholic values and to say, hey, we have something in common here. We have a shared faith. That religion is important to me. It's important to my character, to my family. And that right there is going to resonate with many, many Latinos, especially immigrants who might feel the same way, lifelong Catholics.
On the when it comes to a Black Latino alliance, this is what I've heard from people. Look, you got some Black folks who say they absolutely support Donald Trump building the wall, don't like illegal immigration. Then you have others who say, wait a minute, if Latinos didn't give a damn about Donald Trump attacking them, why in the hell should I? Do you actually see, as we are 23 years away from the nation becoming majority people of color, and that is Latinos, Blacks, Asian Americans making up the majority in this country, whites being 47%. Do you actually see a growing, because it exists in a lot of places right now, but do you see a real opportunity for a much stronger Black Latino alliance? And how does that work politically to counter, frankly, what I call white minority resistance, even though they're in the majority, where whites are essentially joining together saying, hey, we got to hold these folks back as long as we can because they're coming and the demographics are changing. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, the number one motivator and mobilizer, the most popular figure in the Latino electorate right now was President Obama. Now, there's no surprise why you saw him on the trail closing. He is still held in very high regard and high esteem. So when our leaders lean in, they help the community come along on those issues of solidarity and coalition. And so the more that our leaders lean in on those issues, I think you're going to see big opportunities for that. Kamala Harris was extremely popular, not only because of her connections in California, being well familiar with the Latino community, but her own immigrant stories. We were just talking about many African Americans have that immigrant story today. So I think you're going to see that. I think you have big opportunities for that. And there's no doubt when we poll on BLM, and we ask, Latinos are very supportive of that as a concept and as a justice movement, especially that community under the age of 35. It is at the same rates with Latinos under 35 as it is with African Americans. You're talking about 85, 88% support for BLM. So I hope that that's an opportunity, but our leaders need to lean in and they will help bring both communities along.
Well, we have an opportunity now. Again, we're going to break these numbers down. Matt Barreto with Latino Decisions. Man, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You got it, Roland. You send me that pocket square, all right?
I got you. I'll hook you up. Matt, thanks a lot. All right, folks,
All right.
Let's go back to my panel here. Monique, you're from Texas. You heard that conversation there with Matt. And when you start breaking these things down, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, my God, we can't trust Latinos, we can't trust white people, we can't trust anybody. But the reality is, he talked about the popularity of Obama. Multiracial coalitions are how Democrats have won. Even when you look at these numbers here, it's really how Joe Biden won. Just your thoughts on that discussion there.
Am I free to discuss what can't be discussed now?
You can discuss whatever hell, yes, you can discuss. Go. Well, no, first of all, I'm gonna go ahead. First of all, I'm gonna get specifically to white voters. I'm gonna get specifically to white voters in our next segment, but go ahead. I'll give you far more leeway than Scott because you have far more restraint than Scott does, but go ahead.
Okay, well, that might change after tonight.
We're going to have to take over the show at some point.
Just do something, Scott, right? Yeah. So there was a huge disinformation campaign, and we know it. It was disinformation, misinformation, yellow journalism, propaganda, out and out lies, and it targeted and preyed upon ignorance and need. And what that ended up doing is convincing a sect of people, a section of a grouping of people, that there was no Democratic candidate that would be able to meet their needs or be sufficient. They were under attack. They were under threat, no matter who the candidate was. So Bernie Sanders? Was Kamala Harris? Was Joe Biden? It ain't matter. That was what that messaging was. My issue, though, is that to me, these are underbelly conversations. We're going to win this election, and we're going to win it because of Black folks, Black women, Black men. I'm going to give y'all something. I'm not sure how much I'm going to give you. Maybe some candy corn. But Black folks, right, made sure we got where we were going, which is our obligation because we need to get there. And our Latinx community struggled in some part because of ignorance and because of lack of information. White folks, yeah, not so much. We are minorities, and the white people here are still majorities. And white women voted against their interests. The majority of people who are poor voted against their interests. White males who don't have education voted against their own interests in favor of this racist, ignorant, amoral, certified fool, incompetent president. They said, give me more, give me more, give me more. And that to me is where we have to drop our anchor. Yeah, DNC could have done more on Latinx, but that's just not the story. The story is all the people who were saying we're with you in the polls and when they were at the council meetings, and then when they went into the voting place or when they filled out their absentee ballot, they voted with their supremacy that they don't even have, that is a figment of their imagination, that is years gone by. But they voted for the man that's trying to push it forward. And that, to me, is the conversation that we have to have.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, go ahead.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, no, very much so. And, I if you think about it, 1 out of 2 voting Americans, close to it, voted for Donald Trump against the backdrop of coronavirus, a failed economy, and health care. Think about that. That's more disturbing than the 35% of Latino men in Florida who voted for Donald Trump, believing that somehow Biden was going to be socialistic or somewhat social. It just makes no sense. It says more about America than it does about Donald Trump. That's why after this campaign is done, after we get a new president, we got a lot of work to do. And I'll get into that when you ask about that. But let's talk about the underbelly of the Latino community and the Hispanic community. We know Black people and brown people, we suffer from intra-racism, right? We don't talk about it, but there's intra-racism, right? We think because Donald Trump is anti-immigration that all Latinos, all Hispanic care about that. When really, in my opinion, the Mexican population, Mexican Americans care about that, but even they don't like illegal immigration because they came, quote, did it the right way and are here legally, right? Cubans and Venezuelans and Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, they all have their own issues. White people and others sometimes think that groups of people of color are monolithic. We are not. Black people ain't monolithic, right? Even Black people had this intra-racism piece historically with the brown bag test and light-skinned African-Americans and dark-skinned African-Americans. You talk about white Hispanics who are identifying with white people and dark Hispanics who come from Brazil and Puerto Rico who have hair like mine when I had hair, but also share my complexion. We got to tear the cover off this, and the Democrats have to get a directed message at each of these groups because they owe their leadership. They owe their leadership in the White House to each of these groups. And if they don't, we've got to make them pay attention because we've got to demand something in return. Biden and Harris are going to owe people of color, women of color, Black, brown people a lot after this election. And there's going to be a long line, right? And even still, we didn't take the Senate back. Spent $300 million, and we still couldn't turn America around when it comes to the Senate. And so there's lots of work to do, but we cannot run from this intra-racism and the non-monolithic nature of Black people and brown people and ask and demand their vote, get our vote, and we must have something in return.
Robert
and
Patillo.
that's a collective piece for people of color.
Robert.
Well, just to piggyback off of what was said previously, let's understand Democrats have confused the issue of diversity and power. Diversity means you got some people of color around the table. Power means that those people of color actually have the ability to influence, to direct dollars, to direct the way that you are conducting your campaign, to conduct messaging. The Democratic Party did a poor job of actually talking to and listening to the people they wanted to turn out and vote for them, and they thought that the K Street lobbyists, that the New York and the San Francisco focus groups and marketing firms could put together a non-offensive message that could bring together a big tent and also have suburban white soccer moms and people from inner city Chicago or Atlanta and Detroit, and also a Cuban from South Florida, a hippie from Berkeley, and all under one messaging. What the Republicans do, on the other hand, is listen to their voters. President Trump came in tabula rasa. There was no clear-cut policies that he had. Whatever the crowd shouted out, that became the campaign messaging, whether it was build that wall, lock her up, drain the swamp, or anything else. Because of that, he elicited a fierce loyalty, a fierce almost cult-like following among his followers that Democrats simply were not able to match. And this is why that polling data was not able to capture that passion. So even though it said Biden was up 8 points here or 14 points here, what it didn't capture was the fact that these Trump voters would take a bullet for him because they felt that he represented them as an oppressed and angry white minority. And that also spilled over to other people who felt like they were part of marginalized groups that were not being heard by the Democrats. So if Democrats are going to continue to not listen to their base and not listen to the people they claim to represent, then they're going to continue to see this small group metastasize into growing into a larger problem. The fact that we are here and we're not going to know the outcome of this election for the end of this week, maybe into next week, for a president who allowed 250,000 people to die, 60 million people to be unemployed as a result of a virus, international incident after incident, who was impeached earlier this year, and you can barely squeak out a win by your fingernails. That means you got a whole lot of work to do between now and the next election, particularly when you can't flip seats like Jamie Harrison in South Carolina, where we have so many tapes of Lindsey Graham lying that we could just play commercials of just Lindsey Graham lying for the rest of this year at like some kind of Christmas special. So Democrats have to do some real soul searching. Don't take this win as a sign that you turned the party around.
Teresa.
No,
Scott. No. Wait.
That's the power of whiteness.
Come on.
Okay, come on. Is there more to that?
I didn't want to interrupt my brother because we rarely are so in sync. So
go ahead.
I wanted to yield. But listen, Democrats don't have to soul search.
Right.
Black people, right? We're Democrat, and we did what we were supposed to do. It's like when people tell you to go to church and the Bible says you are the church. So where Democrats are concerned, people are telling me to get with the Democrats, and I'm like, I am the Democrats. I'm a Black woman 50 and over. I'm a Democrat. I got you an election. Figure this shit out. Sorry, I said that out loud. Oh, God. Listen. Help me, Holy Ghost. The reason the Latinx are having a problem that the Black people don't have is because there's not a shared experience. Black people, though not monolithic, vote in unity. And I just watched Hannah from 1619 Project talk about this earlier today. Slavery is in our roots. Like if we back up where we came from and we go back to where we landed in this country before we came from wherever. Because if we're Black, you can say Africa, you can say Barbados, you can say Bahamas, you can say Jamaica, you can say yes. And I'm trying to get y'all to start thinking about the Black woman who's about to be Madam Vice President because she's Black. But in all of our shared experience is a root of slavery, and then an appendage, a branch of discrimination and Jim Crow and disenfranchisement and oppression and suppression. We have all that in common. So no matter where we come from, we're together. It's not the same. Roland, as you listed off all the places, whether it's Puerto Rico, whether it's Mexico, or whether it's Cuba or wherever, those are different experiences. And they align themselves, even if it's just in their heads, differently. Cuban Americans are white in their head. And they voted like rich white people, which is what they've been doing. This is not new. This is not new. And then immigrants who are concerned because they came legally, and this is their chance to run from a socialist, oppressive nation, to have their big shot, their American pie, to dream their impossible dream. I mean, they are in some Don Quixote-ness right now. And then the disinformation told them that Joe Biden was going to take that. Joe Biden is no more a socialist than Donald Trump. But the misinformation campaign told them something that we couldn't snatch away. But I say all that to say, an aside, white people is where we need to focus. And I hope that that's our next segment, because I have more to say.
I wish y'all let me host this damn show. So I'm going to get to that. But I'm going to need y'all like calm your asses down. Teresa, go ahead, comment on this topic.
You guys are phenomenal. I stand on your shoulder. But I think, look, honestly, you guys all really just hit the touch points. I think this is more so a reevaluation of the Democratic Party in itself. Monique hit it right on the head when she said, as a Black woman, 50 and over, we are the Democrats. And so because we have always followed the narrative of what Democrats are supposed to do, we do vote. We do come out in droves. We do support. We do unify. We do tell our neighbors. We bring our friends and we go vote together and take pictures and hashtag. So there's so many opportunities that we've done to unify, but it's almost like it's missing the bell here when it comes to the larger notion of who's at the table when these decisions are being made to allocate funds. So yes, the bigger white consulting firms are, and I told you, Roland, on one of the posts, I was getting to this point. They are getting the contracts. And when they get the contracts, what do? They subcontract the smaller minority firms and say, hey, tell us where the money needs to go. But then they give us a small little minority budget and wonder why their margins are small when it comes to some of the vote count, because they didn't invest early on. And I hope the Democratic Party takes this as a larger lesson, that even through a pandemic, the votes have tripled. Unbelievable scenes are coming out of counties. Unbelievable scenes are coming out of major cities. And the reason why they are coming out is because people have been tired of not being listened to. Rob was hitting it right on the head when he said it literally is a cult. Lock her up, right? It's so catchy that you almost believe it. And essentially that is what a cult is. And so when you have someone, who is literally in the White House with all the power, who just looks like they can do whatever they want, say whatever they want without consequence, you get impeached, you get detention, and then you still get back to the seat, right? It's baffling, but it also shows you the power that they have, or seemingly. It's all about impressionable visits. So ultimately, out the Democratic Party is looking to call Monique, Rob, A. Scott Bolton, myself, and of course Roland, to strategize on a better future of what the party looks like, but also allocating those resources effectively and efficiently so we don't have to go through this again.
All right, y'all done on this topic?
Yes.
All right.
We can move on. Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to a break. We're going to come back about some racist language being taken out of the Mississippi Constitution. Then we're going to talk about the U.S. Senate race, the Democrats. And then we're going to get to the ultimate topic of white folks in America, how they voted, and how I wish all these folk stop trying to say no one could have predicted white people were going to do this. I'm gonna show y'all that. We'll be back. Roland Martin Unfiltered.
I'll never forget it. You was at the Million Man March.
Yep.
I'm in prison. We supporting from prison and showing unity because I put together a plan. This guy named Lewis McKenzie. He was the first person I told. I woke up, I say, Lewis, then they got this Million Man March, and we not gonna be a part of it. We can't be a part of it. But we gotta show some type of solidarity. I said, man, I don't want nobody black to go in that cafeteria. On that day, October 16th, I don't want nobody in that cafeteria. Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I think we can feed each other. I think we can do it. He said, boy, you pull that off, they gonna move you. And I said, I think I can do it. And we did it. And I think that was the only time I ever shedded a tear in prison, because I got up that morning and walked on that rec yard, and I didn't see, from 6 different buildings, I didn't see one black inmate walk into that cafeteria. Even the people who was cooking the food didn't eat in there. And I knew they found out about it because on that day, you know, you got people working in the kitchen. Spaghetti was on the menu, and they changed it from spaghetti to fried chicken. And it wasn't because, oh, it's a black thing. That's the only time that you get a whole piece of chicken, and it'll be another month before you get it. And the funniest thing, Halim, his brother named Halim, he was cooking, and he had stole out the kitchen all this chicken. He said, now you told me not to eat it in there. He didn't say nothing about taking it back to this chicken, bringing it back to this block.
All right, folks, there were a lot of other issues on the ballot that went beyond the national race, Senate races, and House races. One of them took place in the state of Mississippi, and that is Mississippi voters repealed language from the state's 1890 Constitution that could prevent candidates winning a majority of the vote from taking office. The vote marked the first time Mississippians on their own, without federal courts stepping in, have opted to remove from the Constitution one of the multiple Jim Crow-era provisions designed to prevent African Americans from holding office. Joining me now is one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, political scientist Dr. Leslie Burrow McLemore. Dr. McLemore, for people who don't understand this provision, Mississippi has not elected an African American statewide since 1890. That's first. And explain to people what this provision was that literally could prevent a black person from actually taking office based upon this change that was put in that convention in 1890, where only one black person was invited, and he voted against black people having voting rights.
Well, you're talking about Isaiah T. Montgomery, who was a delegate to the Mississippi Constitution of 1890. And the system you're talking about was really a part of the Mississippi Plan. And the Mississippi Plan clearly was designed to exclude black people from the political process after Reconstruction. And it really was a 2-tiered system. And the 2-tiered system was you had to win the popular vote, but you also had to win a majority of the House of Representatives districts in the state of Mississippi. And we have 122 House districts. So you had to win a majority of the House districts. And if you didn't win a majority of the House districts and the popular vote, then you would not be elected. So it was designed to exclude any black person from winning a statewide office. And that's in part why we haven't, of course, had a black person to win a statewide office since Reconstruction. But on the other hand, it is in part because we have the largest percentage of black people in the population of any state in the union. And so there's this systematic exclusion that occurred with the 1890 Constitution, and it's held true until the vote yesterday.
And so this vote now means that if someone African American is elected, then they won't have to go to this other criteria to be able to actually win.
That's right. They won't have to go through this 2-tiered process. The popular vote would carry the day with the new system, with the elimination of that provision in the Constitution.
And also, Mississippi yesterday voted for a new state flag.
That's correct. And of course, all of that was a part of this whole George Floyd moment that occurred in the country, and I guess it's still occurring. But it was high time that, that we changed the flag.
Just comment, please, on the Mike Espy Senate race. He lost by 68,000 votes a couple of years ago. Much wider margin this time. Obviously, a midterm election is a lot different with turnout than the presidential election. Incumbent Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, she rode that all the way to the bank, even though she barely even campaigned.
Well, my theory and my thinking, quite frankly, is that the first time around, Secretary Espy was able to take advantage of the asinine racist comments
right.
Cindy Hyde-Smith made. And this time, although that was a reminder of what she said 2 years ago, it didn't have the same impact, the same effect. And Secretary Espy was really trying to attract at least 22% of the white vote, and he was not able to do that. And then he was trying to, of course, obviously get 90+% of the black vote. And Roland, what the problem has been traditionally is that too often we elected officials, we are satisfied with carrying a particular county as opposed to leaving too many votes on the table. And what we really have to do as we try to run statewide in the future is that we have to take a closer look at how many votes we actually have in X county so we can target X number of votes out of that county. And what we have not done, I think, a thorough job of providing the kind of community education, or political education that we need to do on a regular basis. And too often when we run, we wait until we get ready to run for office as opposed to doing the long-term stuff. And this is something that doesn't necessarily have to be done by the person who's running for office, but we have too many different organizations that are not doing what they ought to be doing in order to provide that level of political education.
Well, and that's one of the things that I've said. I think we need to have massive citizenship education classes all across the country to get black folks understanding the process and connecting the dots. And so that's just one of the thoughts there. Dr. McLemore, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so very much.
Okay, you're welcome. You take care.
Yes, sir. All right, folks, let's go to these U.S. Senate races. Democrats were hoping they would take control of the United States Senate. That simply did not happen. Last night in Arizona, Mark Kelly was able to defeat incumbent Martha McSally, pick up there. John Hickenlooper won the Colorado Senate seat, pick up there. That's two. The Democrats knew they were going to lose the Senator Doug Jones seat. He lost by 24 points to dumb coach Tommy Tuberville in Alabama. They won the Minnesota seat, but the key is that what's happening in Michigan. It has been going back and forth, back and forth. Black Republican John James running against incumbent Senator Gary Peters. Again, back and forth in that particular race there. In North Carolina, Cal Cunningham down 100,000 votes to incumbent Senator Tom Tillis. Tom Tillis declared victory, but Cal Cunningham has not conceded in that particular race. Sarah Gideon, she has conceded to Senator Susan Collins in Maine. And then, of course, Jody Ernst won there in Iowa. In Georgia, we're watching whether or not John Ossoff is able to force a runoff with incumbent Senator David Perdue. Perdue last point had 50.6% of the vote. He has to get under 50% in order to force the runoff. Reverend Raphael Warnock did indeed force the runoff with, of course, with Kelly Loeffler, the incumbent senator. As I said, Mike Espy lost in Mississippi, and then in Louisiana, Adrian Perkins was unable. The Shreveport mayor was unable to stop Bill Cassidy from getting 50%. Cassidy got 59% there in that particular race, and then of course in South Carolina, Jamie Harrison raised $109 million, was not unable to beat Lindsey Graham, losing by 11 points, and then of course you have Hagar in Texas. Texas losing to John Cornyn. Then you have Amy McGrath getting drubbed against Mitch McConnell. Here's something that Axios put the story on, and it says there's a lot. Wow. It says there's a lot. Let me just pull it out. And I saw this graph, the graph speaks for itself when you start looking at these numbers, and the numbers are perfectly clear that look at the amount of money that was raised. Harrison, $109 million, loses by 11. Amy McGrath raises $90 million, loses by 20. Sarah Gideon raises $70 million, loses by 9. MJ Hagar raises $24 million, loses by 10 points. Robert, I want to start with you. Start looking at the numbers. Democrats got a hold onto the Gary Peters seat. That could push it to 49. If they were able to get that seat by Warnock in the January runoff, that means January 5th. That puts them at 50. That's really the best case scenario. When Senator Chuck Schumer was on here, he was talking about 55, 57. Look, the Senate candidates didn't do well.
Oh, well, I think this is where, just as you were saying with the Latino vote earlier, this is where we have to allow more leeway for messaging for local candidates. Jamie Harrison can't run on the same message as somebody running against Joni Ernst would. You can't have Mike Espy holding a party line which is congruent with what the person running against Susan Collins would be running on. And I think because of that, you saw that the polls, which also indicated that Biden would be up by double digits, all turned out to be wrong because you're not doing the micro-targeting, particularly for uneducated, poor white people. Those people are not being polled, and those people are the ones who are turning out. So I think in the post-mortem after this, we're going to have to start funding more candidates on a granular level, allowing them to develop their own messaging that works in their own micro-targeted markets. Because otherwise, by hanging around their neck, down here in Georgia, the only thing that you see are Ossoff commercials, not attacking Ossoff, but attacking Nancy Pelosi, attacking Chuck Schumer, attacking Bernie Sanders and AOC, because we're tying them to messaging which does not benefit them on the local level. But also, particularly with the Georgia races, the Fulton County and DeKalb County vote totals are still coming in even this late and are going to continue coming in. It looks like Ossoff has a decent chance of getting into a runoff with David Perdue. And if Joe Biden ends up winning Georgia, even by a small amount, there is a chance that John Ossoff may be able to win this straight out with just the number of votes that are outstanding. So that's something to keep an eye on. So all is not lost yet. And if with Warnock being in a runoff and with Ossoff potentially also being in a runoff, there is still a chance for Democrats to get to 50 with Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking vote.
Marquita Bradshaw ran for the United States Senate in Tennessee. Got my iPad. She lost to Bill Hagerty, 62% to 35% by a little under 800, almost 800,000 votes there. Look, I mean, bottom line is this is painful for Democrats. They really believed, Teresa, they were going to get control of the United States Senate. Now they can't drive that agenda. If they're going to have to negotiate with Mitch McConnell, he is going to be in the driver's seat because, look, they can pass whatever they want in the House. He doesn't have to take it up in the United States Senate. You might be looking at where Joe Biden is going to be governing for 4 years as president, largely with executive orders.
The focus of 2020 has been to get a new president. Unfortunately, I do not think some of those resources and some of that strategy was given to the U.S. Senate. I've had countless conversations with individuals on their team, and it's just I've been feeling like they've just been pulled in different directions at different times, utilizing their own resources to enhance the presidency. And unfortunately, that opportunity that we did have to go down the ticket in order to change some of those seats into blue, it's just kind of, unfortunate because I honestly, I think there were some easy wins if the right strategy and the right resources were being allocated at that time. But again, if we, now you have to deal, with the man in charge. And I guess they need to see what happens. So I guess unless they're going to impeach him as well, you still have to deal with a Mitch McConnell and a Lindsey Graham.
Look, Monique, they raised a lot of money. But the bottom line is this here. You have to run your own race. And again, here's the deal. Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, they got some answers. And I'm sorry, it's some white consultants. It's time for y'all to get fired. Look, you raise that amount of money. How do people get paid? Running TV ads. Guess what? You got to put money on the ground. Pure and simple, okay? That whole ad war nonsense, you got to put money on the ground in order to win. I think, frankly, Charles Booker could have been a much better general. I mean, look, he ran a hell of a race, barely lost in the primary. Amy McGrath was Republican light. I'm sorry, that's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it at all. Cal Cunningham, I'm sorry. What the fuck? Dude, you're running for the United. Yeah, I almost said what the fuck. Yes, I almost said it. Sure did.
Oh,
why?
God.
Because you're running for the United States Senate and you're sexting. Dude, do it after you win.
He didn't think he was gonna get caught.
I'm just money gone. I'm gone.
Are you saying that Jamie Harrison didn't have enough money on the ground?
No. What I'm saying, no. First of all, he's running in South Carolina. That was always going to be an uphill battle. Okay, it's always going to be an uphill battle. Okay, many people say he was going to top out at 47%. He got 43%. Okay, it was a huge rush when it came to Donald Trump. Republicans increased their hold on statewide positions. What I am saying is, in the places where you could have actually won, Maine, North Carolina, you're gonna have to sit here and do more on the ground to win those states. It's not as simple. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying the Democrats are going to have to stop listening to white campaign consultants who get paid by the volume of TV commercials, and you got to put that money, as Matt said, on the ground in communities to really go door to door to pull the votes out. You ain't gonna win everything by running TV ads. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I keep trying not to get to your last segment where I say white people are gonna white people, and we're seeing a lot of white people doing white peopling things. And it's affecting things like Jamie Harris's race. It's even affecting Amy McGrath's race. And you're saying that somehow the Democrats can't rely on their. But see, you know that the polling.
Oh, what I'm saying. But I'm not focused on the polls, because what I'm arguing is, and since y'all want to go ahead and go there, and I was going to go ahead and get to this, and that is this here. What you're dealing with right now is you cannot run your conventional campaigns of just blanket ads. No, if you look at what happened in Georgia, Georgia is not going to go potentially to Biden, or it's going to have the runoff with Warnock and Ossoff because they ran TV ads. No, what they did was the hard, gritty work on the ground, 6 years, finding the people, going after the disaffected, and then getting them on the voting rolls. That's how they changed the state. The reason Virginia is a blue state, because they went on the ground, sitting here, tilling the soil in order to be able to reap the benefits. Even though Cunningham is down 100,000 votes in North Carolina, the reason Democrats have a 6-1 advantage on the state Supreme Court, the reason Cooper was reelected, the black woman did not win for lieutenant governor, the black guy did, who's a damn nut. And then you some other races, is because for 10 years they were on the ground. What I'm saying is this here. Democrats are going to have to come to a conclusion and stop listening to white consultants who get paid by TV ad buys. Teresa will speak to that and say you got to put the money, groups, going door to door, neighborhoods, energizing people. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to compete when it comes to the white folks. And I'm going to say this point, and you can speak on it. Look, 55% of white women went for Trump, up 2 points last time. Stop thinking white women are going to be your savior. They not.
Okay, I agree. In toto, I agree. But I think perhaps because we're just a couple of cycles in, that some of this may have been necessary for them to see the value, so that Bloomberg isn't the only one who's seeing the value of funding a Stacey Abrams and her operation.
But he blew $100 million on Florida. He blew $100 million on Florida that went to TV ads. Teresa, same thing. You can't keep putting your money just in TV. You got to put it in people.
But I think that's why I called on Stacey Abrams, and I could use other examples like that, where we're going to see the fruit of what real labor is, where you're tilling the soil, where you know the place because you're from there, you're of it, you're in it, you're in community, and you know what is required. But this we talked about this earlier, Roland. This is an awakening for some to something that you have known and been talking about, and I've known and been talking about. Scott's known, Robert's known, where people are seeing, oh, wait a minute, they really are still racist, even though they don't admit it. And so they thought that the ads would work because if you got a white supremacist in the presidency, that's not good, right? Except, people don't care, apparently, in the numbers that we thought. So now we're going to have to till soil because this is a blatant reality that Black and brown people have been facing, that now white people have to look in the mirror. And I tweeted earlier today, miss me with all the come to Jesus meetings, because we did our part. I'm good with it. And now you got your president, work the rest out.
Look, Teresa. I love all these people on these mainstream networks saying, oh my goodness, no one could have predicted this. No. What? That white people were going to do what they're doing? So I had my staff pull together, cull together, variety of appearances that I made on MSNBC. Press play.
Donald Trump is not trying to appeal to African Americans or Latinos or Asians or Native Americans. He is specifically trying to appeal to white fear. The Republican Party provides aid and comfort to white supremacists in America, period. White America must say enough is enough. We are going to reject the racist appeals, and we're not going to vote along the lines of race. Is Donald Trump and the Republican Party purposely and openly courting white supremacists? The answer is yes. He is appealing to white nationalism and white fear to get him reelected. He needs white anger, white resistance, the fear of white minorities. That's what he needs to win, and we have to oppose that with every fiber of our being. White America has to own this. The reality is white voters have to confront the issue of race. They have to reject the racist appeals of Donald Trump. I have to see white America prove to me that they're going to reject the white supremacy of Donald Trump. White America has to answer the question, what are you going to do?
Sir.
I love it.
Yes, sir.
You know, I actually just
Clearly they didn't.
Wait.
Any one of y'all can jump in if y'all want to. Go ahead, Teresa.
Did you want to?
It's been said now.
I can't.
It's been said.
Every time Roland gets
It's
on
been said.
national media, it's been said multiple times. But he gets on there with I love the African attire because it's like we already know what you're about to say. You're about to drop the history, dropping the nuggets, and it's like I keep banging it on the head. Like honestly, Roland, I need to see you on Fox and really give Hannity.
Oh hell no! They ain't gonna call me. They gonna call Scott. They gonna call Monique. They gonna call y'all. They ain't gonna call me.
Are we lightweight?
No, y'all ain't lightweight, but y'all ain't gonna come on out with that kente. But go on right ahead, Teresa. Go ahead.
That's absolutely right. But honestly, you've been saying it since the beginning. You know, white people have been, in the decision-making seat for so long, and it's just like it's a lost message when it comes to really allocating resources and being a different type of strategist. I can't tell you the countless times that I've seen a back-to-back Trump-Biden commercial, right? But I'm in this space, so I'm like very aware. What I will tell you is that on some of because I pulled the numbers as well, on some of the stations that had to do with, BET, VH1, Trump was dominating those segments, but also putting smaller little ads on digital spaces. But more of his money, like here in Philadelphia, he was paying people literally, $100 an hour and $50 an hour and for some things just to knock on the doors, right? So there has been, an interesting spin as it relates to how they understood, look, you guys, Latinos, you need money. Look, this is what we're going to do. Versus the Democrats, you got to, it's like a dog and pony show almost just to get a contract. But I think they're, hopefully, again, part of that revamping is also reevaluation of what they plan on to move forward so we don't go backwards.
And Roland, this is nothing new, by the way.
Oh, it's not. I mean,
1988. You remember in 1988.
I'm sorry, hold up. You said 1788?
No, I said 1988.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you mean 1688?
No. Well, let me just say, my first experience with Poles lying, or rather, Poles don't lie, white people lie.
No. But see, no. See, hold on. Stop right there. See, we ain't got to have a poll conversation because this is not about polls. What we have to contend with, Scott, is that what this is about is Donald Trump has allowed a majority of white people to now verbalize what they've always had inside, but they've had to restrain it. They've had to hide it. They've had to turn it down. They've had to modulate. Trump comes along, don't give a damn, says what he want to say, and they like, ooh, this is their, ooh.
I'm free.
We've been waiting. Oh my God, we've been waiting. Trump has unleashed it. So when Joe Biden, and I get Uncle Joe, why he was saying it, after Trump, Republicans are going to go back. No. The only card they have now is whiteness. They have to appeal to whiteness, Scott. They have to appeal to fear. They have to be, and because they understand messaging, he got plus 4 points. 96% of black women 96% of black women voted for Hillary Clinton. 91% of black women voted for Donald Trump. He was plus 4 with black women, plus 4 with black men, and you saw the increase in Latino. And so it's all about messaging. What I'm saying is whiteness is about an overt appeals to race because now they're saying, look at Trump. You can go ahead and be racist and it ain't going to hurt you.
The problem with your analysis is that doesn't work without Trump in power.
Yes, it does.
When Trump is not in power,
yes, it does.
It'll be interesting to see whether the power of that whiteness continues because it won't have a mainstream platform.
Yes, it will.
What's your comment or response to that?
Yes, it will. Robert, the reality is this here.
So?
No, what it's done, Robert, it is unleashed the inner hate. And so here's what you're about to listen. Listen. Here's what you're about to see. You're about to see the candidates, Robert, go, well, hell, he acted a plum ass. Lied, made stuff up, hell, couldn't handle coronavirus, and these fools still elected him? If I just do a little less, I can stay in office. Robert, people need to stop saying this is Trump. No, this is the Republican Party of the 21st century.
Well, it's not even of the 21st century. This is the post-Nixon Republican Party now with social media and steroids. President Trump is doing very much what Goldwater talked about in '68 when he talked about the white lash in response to African-American progress during the first term of LBJ. In response to President Obama, we are seeing that white lash. We are seeing the PC culture they like to talk about, this idea of giving other people rights, diversity, so on and so forth. And when you push people into that box, you're seeing them explode out. What Scott was talking about with 88 and 84, with what Reverend Jackson did, and what Democrats have to do is bring your own voters to the polls. Go find new voters. Those Rust Belt voters are never coming back. Exactly. Those Rust Belt voters aren't coming back to the Democratic Party. Quit trying to think that the people who are on, let's say, Roseanne, those people are not coming back to the Democratic Party. That was the basically party back when union bosses and factories and auto dealers and auto companies ran the Democratic Party. Your party and your base is in the South now. That's the growth sector. Charlotte, Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, New Orleans. Those are the places that are growing in population with transplants from the North. Those are the places places that have progressive values, young people, jobs. That is where the party is going. And as long as you try to hang on to those upper Midwestern Rust Belt voters, you're going to continue to see tight races like this one. This race had no business being tight in the first place. And so you continue to not accept that the white lash is here, then you're going to continue to be a victim of the white lash. And they're doing that lookout block for you, where they say, we got white women on our side, and you look over, they are gone. And they're saying, look out, they're coming for you. So let's understand what's going on.
And here's the point on those. And here's the point on those. Hold on. Scott, then Monique. Scott, go ahead.
Okay, because white people don't believe that Democratic policies and their platform, that the Democrats, when they say what they stand for, they don't believe that the Democrats are talking to them or they're white. They believe all of our positions on environment and healthcare and criminal justice reform and the economy and the alternative energy processes and programs are meant for black and brown people. No. They don't listen to the Democratic message, even if it's in their best interest.
No, you're wrong.
In part.
You're wrong.
They don't believe that the Democrats are talking to them.
You're wrong.
They think they're talking to black and brown people.
No, you're wrong.
That's a fact.
No, you're wrong.
I can give you reports and data on that.
No, you're wrong. Monique, go ahead. Monique, go ahead.
The most disrespected person, Scott, the most disrespected person in America is a black woman. The most unprotected person in America is a black woman. And the most neglected person in America is a black woman. There's a black woman on this ticket, at the top of the ticket. She's the person who, if this next president, who is upward in age, as we all admit, is unable to proceed, will become the president of the United States. She's the heir apparent for the presidency when he finishes his term. So anybody who's saying that this shouldn't have been close in an America that is as racist as it's ever been, that is a patriarchy, that is just steeping with white supremacy and misogyny and sexism, you're not awake. For all of the wokeness, you're not awake, because it's a fight, and we should have expected it to be a dogfight in order to be able to get Senator Kamala Harris to be in the position that Vice President Joe Biden had the smarts and the boldness to put her in. But don't mistake it. The same black women who are making it possible for the Democrats to be able to do this and made it possible for a black woman to be in that space, we're the same black women who since slavery understand what it is for nobody to be on our side. And by nobody, I mean white men, white women, black men who have been beaten, lynched, and come home and kick the wife and then kick the dog. So the fact that we're screeching through, to me, is expected and appropriate, and we're good. We're winning right now, because I don't expect for people to be with me. Senator Kamala Harris said to Steve Harvey 2 days ago when she was being interviewed that when you're someone in our position, you get used to no. You eat no for breakfast, and it's a hearty meal. So I'm not surprised, but I am thankful that the victory is still assured, so we can do this post-mortem if we want to. But I'm here to tell you, white people were just doing white people, and we made it over anyway.
Yeah, but no. See, first of all, we made it halfway.
Yes,
No. Because
we're over.
No. Actually, no, we didn't make it all the way over. And the reason we didn't make it all the way over is because the reality is this here. When you look at what happened, not just in the presidential race, but also when it comes to the United States Senate, when it comes to various policies. Now you're dealing with a situation where Mitch McConnell can be the cog to block everything. That's one. Two, when you look at what happened on the state level in Texas, Democrats did not win nine House seats, and they now don't control that chamber. Republicans can control redistricting for the next 10 years. Same thing happened in other states. No full legislature flipped. Now, Here's what we're dealing with when we talk about this notion of whiteness. And we have to understand, I need all people. In fact, let me just go ahead and do this here. You can go ahead and Henry, you can zoom out because I'm tired of sitting down. I sat down 8 hours last night. So here's a deal I need y'all to understand. Go ahead and zoom out. I need y'all to understand I got to stand up, all right? What we got to understand here with whiteness, that we're watching with whiteness, we have to understand is all this talk, oh my God, Trump and his racism, Trump and his sexism, Trump and his comments, Trump and his lying. They don't give a damn about none of that. Go to my iPad, Henry. The Jack Nicklaus statement of support for Donald Trump right here defines whiteness in every single way you need. If you want to understand the thinking of whiteness in America, this is what Jack Nicklaus says in here. He says, I've been very disappointed at what he's had to put up with from many directions, but with that, I've seen the resolve and determination to do the right thing for our country. He has delivered on his promises. He's worked for the average person. In my opinion, he has been more diverse than any other president I have seen and has tried to help people from all walks of life equally. He says this, I'm just a guy from Ohio and a Midwestern middle-class family whose grandfathers both worked on the railroad. They gave their son, my father, the opportunity to pursue his education and his American dream. I was taught strong family values and worked hard to pursue my own dreams, my own American dream. I also believe that Donald Trump's policies will bring the American dream to many families across the nation who are still trying to achieve it. Then he says, see y'all, I need y'all to understand, this is the kicker. You might not like the way our president says or tweets some things. If I was in church, let me unpack some things. When Jack Nicklaus says some things, he's saying calling black women dogs. When he says some things, when he's calling folk names, some things, when he's lying. Jack Nicklaus reduces Donald Trump's hatred and bigotry to 2 words, some things. Let me continue. And he says, and trust me, I have told him that, but I have learned to look past that and focus on what he's tried to accomplish. Oh my God, let me go ahead and simply pick up on that and unpack that again if I had to preach this thing. He says, I have learned to look past that and focus on what he's tried to accomplish. When I was in Mississippi on Sunday, for Mike Espy, guess what I saw? The Ross Barnett Reservoir. Ross Barnett was the governor of Mississippi during the tumultuous times of the civil rights movement. White folks in Mississippi looked past the bigotry of Ross Barnett, and you still have monuments to Ross Barnett. If you come into Washington, D.C., and you go to the Senate building, it's called the Russell Building. It's named after Richard Russell. Robert Patillo knows him well. He was a segregationist senator from Georgia. See, they looked past his racism and named a building in his honor. See, that's what white America has done. They have looked past the racism and the bigotry and then said, I'm focused on the things he's trying to accomplish. Back to Jack Nicholson's statement. This is not a personality contest. He writes, it's about patriotism, policies, and the people they impact. His love for America and its citizens and putting his country first has come through loud and clear. How he has said it has not been important to me. What has been important are his actions. Now you have the opportunity to take action. Let me unpack that. What Jack Nicklaus is saying, it ain't important if your ass bothered by his racism. It's not important if you bothered by his bigotry. It's not important if you bothered by his sexism. It ain't important to me as a white man if you bothered by his lying. It ain't important to me as a white man if you bothered by all the folks in administration who have been brought up on charges, who have pled guilty, who have gone to prison. It's not important to me how many of them have been corrupt. It's not important to me if he is sitting here saying we should take out these progressive DAs who are causing problems in this country. It's not important to me if he ain't sitting here spoken out about crimes committed against black folks by cops. It's not important to me how he embraces police officers and says nothing about police brutality. It's not important to me if he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by. It's not important to me what he said in Charlottesville. There are good people on both sides. It's not important to me about any of that because what Jack Nicklaus is saying, your issues, black people, ain't my problem. What he's saying is, young folks, your issues ain't my problem. What he's saying is, as a white man, I'm focused on my stuff and your stuff don't mean a damn thing to me. The statement, Robert Patillo, by Jack Nicklaus speaks exactly to why white America voted the way they did on yesterday, and we had better come to understand that this statement right here is simply a white manifesto for the 21st century, and folk better understand what we are up against, because if you keep somehow thinking they care about racism, they don't. Jack Nicklaus says it. He says, point blank, how he has said it has not been important to me. What has been important are his actions. Robert, go ahead.
Well, you're exactly right. And let's understand something, that these people are not voting on economic issues. It's not about white economic anxiety, as they tried to write it off as after the last election, because the only finite policies that we've seen is a massive tax cut for millionaires and billionaires that doesn't affect the average white working class voter. What this is about is cultural issues. It's about the concept and the idea that they got shook. They were scared to their core when they saw that black man walk into the White House in 2009 and govern with class and dignity for 8 years. And this is that Goldwater-esque white lash to that, and a reassertion of their dominance. A majority of white people in this country voted for Donald Trump twice. They will probably vote for him again in 2024 when he runs again. This is not a defect in the system. This is not the system breaking down. This is the system operating exactly as it was built to operate, exactly as it was intended to operate. And it's our job to understand that and put forth policies that are not meant to comfort these quote-unquote white working-class voters that are supposed to be coming back in droves to the Democratic Party, but rather pushing forward the agenda that will turn out the maximum number of minority voters and urban voters who are ready to turn out. So when you have issues with black men voting for the Democratic Party, then you need to damn well put a reparations plank in the Democratic platform, because guess what? Those same white folks you're scared that you're going to scare off from the Democratic Party by being too radical, they are already gone and they are not coming back. Double down on who you have. Put forward a policy and an agenda that will support them, and then you will not be running these razor-thin margins in states. You'll be winning by massive amounts because you will be campaigning to the people who support you already instead of trying to win back people who are already gone.
Come on, man. These black men ain't voting for no damn reparations. They vote for the masculinity of Donald Trump. They are voting for his economic policies. They ain't voting for reparations, because here's the deal. Donald Trump ain't supporting no damn reparations. Mitch McConnell not supporting reparations, Monique. They ain't voting for that. What we got to understand is this here. The Republican Party has no problem being comfortable with white supremacists, and we got to understand that for Democrats, and I've heard black people say, oh, these black men, they misogynistic. Guess what? Guess what? A lot of them are misogynistic. A lot of them are patriarchal. But guess what? When you in a battle, you got to take that 18% Trump got and drop that sucker down to 10%. So you better figure out how to appeal to them. But what I'm saying is, for everybody who keeps saying, Monique, I don't understand, we didn't see this. I mean, oh my God, we thought it was totally different. No, boo. We saw it. Because we saw it when Nixon was elected in 1980. We saw it when Nixon was elected in 1968. We saw it when Wilson was elected, when Hoover was elected. Hell, we saw it after Emancipation Proclamation, and we saw it and this whole time. Black folks have seen this from the beginning of time when we were here. This ain't new to us. What has to happen, Monique, is we need white folks to look at white folks and say, what the hell is wrong with your ass?
Right. And it's not just that we've seen it, it's that we've lived it. So it can't be a surprise when it is our shared experience, as I was talking about earlier. There are things that we've gone through, and you can name any president, as far as I'm concerned, up to and including Donald J. Trump. And that has been our experience. And that's why when I'm seeing even Black organizers and leaders being disappointed in this being a fight, being a dogfight, being, a razor to the finish type of contest, I'm like, well, where have you been? Because I'm in the United States of America and I know where I am. And I know what this country has been from the first time the slave ships landed until now. And it's been consistent. And the people who have been in the minority are the ones who thankfully founded the country with legal standards for what we should be. And then the remnant, it's always only been a remnant. It's never been a majority. And so when we're talking about conversion, I'm a preacher, so I'm trying to evangelize now. When you're talking about conversion, you're looking for a few, and then you're trying to hold on to your own. So yes, we do have to deal with what's going on with Black men. We do have to deal with, if we're going to be a Black and brown coalition, what's going on with Latinos. But I'm here to tell you, the white folks that aren't with me, they probably not going to be with me over the next 4 years because I'm out of conversation for you. I've tried it. And I listened to you even through this election after I was done talking. And every time you told me the economy, I know it's a lie. And every time you told me it's about immigration, I know it's a lie. And every time you told me it's about our cultural way of life, I'm like, okay, we getting closer. Because what you're really saying is, I am supreme and I want to reign supreme. Even if I reign supreme from my trailer park while you are in your $1 million house in the suburbs, I'm better than you because Donald Trump says that I'm better than you, that I have some positioning that is hearkening to the days gone by of the 50s that this country no longer is. And so I can at least think I'm good. Even if I'm in the mud and in the gutter, I'm better than everybody else that's in the sludge. That was what he sold, snake oil salesman that he is. And that is what we're up against. But that's not my job. My job was to do what Black women do, and I did it. So I'm just saying, a preacher can only go but so far.
Scott,
White people, get your people.
Scott, final comment.
You got to be relevant to be valued by anybody. And with white people, Black people have never been valued or equality, whether you're in a big corporation or whether you work in a blue-collar job, right? The comparatives is that I'm not valued with the same statistics at a big law firm than my white counterpart. We have the same statistics, but so often we're not valued enough to say you ought to be paid X, Y, and Z. Or even in the blue-collar work, you're not valued, so we're going to pay you differently. Black people don't have to be relevant to white people because most white people don't live or deal with racism on a daily basis. If you ask somebody white, where is racism on your day-to-day issues? It doesn't make the top 10. If you ask me or you or anyone else, where does racism fit on the list of issues on a day-to-day issue for you as an African American? It's in the top 3 because we're reminded of it all the time. And so you're right, this isn't anything new, but we get caught up. Sometimes we forget as a group that it's there. We tend to think in freedom, justice, and equality, and we're going to strive for it, but it's never left us. And we forget, or we act like we forget because we have an expectation of equality. The more educated we are, or the further we get on the socioeconomic ladder. We can never forget.
Final comment, Teresa.
Since we can never forget, we have to do better. And that means consistent dialogue. That means effective policies. That means looking at leadership a little differently and putting those in who have the same vision and best practice solutions. So by ensuring that they can strengthen communities and broaden the conversation, we definitely have to hold our leadership accountable, but also making sure that white people are doing their part if they say they love America and everything in it. We just can't use Black and brown people just to serve, but we have to use them in the ability of what they are strong in, which is our ability to lead.
Robert, final comment.
Well, I think the most important thing for us to do is understand that the election was not the end; it was the beginning. And so now that let's say these things hold and that Joe Biden's inaugurated, we know the Senate composition is going to be, for the most part, we'll know after the runoffs. We know the House composition is going to be. Now it's time to start having those conversations they told Ice Cube to wait till after the election to have, and that we push forward this agenda that is meant to help our community, because we put the sweat equity in. We did everything we were supposed to do. So now there's no excuse for saying that we have to wait till the next election or wait till after any other group. This is the time to show and deliver.
Let's see. Well, I didn't tell Monique her final comment. Go ahead, make a final comment.
My only final comment is, you know what? Keep the faith, everybody. It's been a hard-fought battle, and for some of us, it's been harder than expected. But victory is assured, and all that victory means, as Robert just said, is we live to fight another day. Is the Biden-Harris ticket perfect? No, humans aren't perfect. But right now, the job is getting them elected. And then the minute that they are, we hold them accountable. I am proud of my Black women sisters. I'm proud of Black men. I'm proud of our allies who have stood up for us in what has been a perpetual fight from the Emancipation Proclamation forward. And I am thankful that we are further today on the journey, even though we have a long way to go.
Somebody sent a tweet out today, and they said, it would be nice if Black folk, if we didn't have to struggle. And I saw that tweet, and I responded back, can you please name me a period since next 1619 when we have not had to struggle? Right. I said, brother, that's all we have is struggle. The fact of the matter is, we've always had to fight for everything. Everything. White America has never given us anything. Everything that we have gotten, we have taken. We have demanded. We have fought for. We have marched for. We have protested for. And yes, that contributes to our anxiety. That contributes to our stress levels. That contributes, it hurts us physically in order to do those things, because frankly, you can be white in America and just float along like you're running around in a daisy field. Everything is all great and wonderful and just cute, and you can just have fun and you don't have to worry about a thing, but that is not the situation for Black people. But let me say this to the folks who are watching, to the people who are trying to figure this whole thing out. You know what this called? You know what this is? We got next. This year alone, Reverend C.T. Vivian, Reverend Dr. Joseph Lowry, Congressman John Lewis, this year, we lost collectively 240 years of leadership. We got next. We're sitting here, folk are despondent and upset and trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what happened, and 55% of white men and 55% of white women and 18% of Black men, and oh my goodness, what's going on? Please, by all means, tell me, how did the Black folks feel in Mississippi in 1890? Please tell me, how did the Black folks feel when they had to deal with this whole issue in 1905, when they had to deal with the Red Summer? Please tell me what they had to deal with. Guess what? We got next. And for all you Black folks sitting out there watching and listening to me on our podcast who are trying to figure out, but what do you mean we got next? That means, guess what? It's your damn time at bat. Dr. King said on April 3rd, 1968, when he gave his speech at Mason Temple in Memphis, he said, be true to what you put on paper. We know the Electoral College is a racist system. We know that system has to be changed, but you cannot demand change of a political system if you also don't vote, because how in the world are you going to change something if you don't vote for the very people who can actually change what you desire? So, Wisconsin called for Joe Biden. Michigan called for Joe Biden. They're going to be finished counting likely tonight in Georgia, in Arizona as well. Joe Biden may very well be declared president of the United States. That's one piece of the puzzle. Democrats may not control the Senate. They might have 49. That means that if you black, get your ass to Georgia and do all you can to ensure Raphael Warnock is elected the next senator from Georgia on January 5th, 2001. That means you show up and show out at the polls to make it happen. What that means is we raise holy hell and put the kind of pressure Mitch McConnell has not seen. And when his hands were burnt and they looked like they were black, let his ass know what it feels like to have black pressure. Y'all, some of y'all were thinking that we were going to have time off if Democrats won the Senate and Biden and Harris got in and it was going to be all rosy and we can have a great time with the inauguration. No, hell no. You are on the wall. You have got to stand up because you got next. And to the Democratic Party, let me be real clear with you. Oh, yes, we're coming after you as well. Because your ass owe us even more now. Because Detroit saved your ass. Atlanta saved your ass. Philadelphia saved your ass. And the $6 million the Biden campaign spent on black media, sorry, I'm not impressed. To the DSCC, the DCCC, to all of those organizations, if you think we're going to be silent and watch as we save your ass again and you're going to go back to chasing white women again, no, you going to have a black male program and initiative to speak to brothers who are blue collar, who are disaffected. You are going to have real programming. Oh, trust me. If you thought black women sent word to you and a shot across the bow after 2016, you ain't seen nothing yet. To the Republican Party, I said in 2017, this means war. Don't think for a second that we gonna sit silently and let y'all play games and drive your asses around in your Trump trucks with your flags. No. I said this means war in 2017. That don't mean the war has ended. Folks, if you want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered, please support us by joining our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. Cash out, $RM Unfiltered, paypal.me/is R Martin Unfiltered, Venmo.com/RM Unfiltered. You can send a money order to New Vision Media Inc. NU Vision Media Inc. 1625 K Street Northwest, Suite 400, Washington, D.C. 2006. Scott, Robert, Monique, and of course, Crazy One out of Philadelphia. We appreciate that. You know, I always got to see them mess with you. We appreciate that. Please count them Philadelphia ballots for us. Please make that thing happen because, again, we want to take Crazy Fool out. Let everybody else know we're coming for them next. I'm going to see y'all tomorrow.